All right, today we're jumping into something really cool from Microsoft called Agent Lightning. It's a new framework with a massive promise to make AI agents way smarter without developers having to touch a single line of their existing code. You know, we see AI agents everywhere now, doing everything from writing code to handling customer support. They're already incredibly powerful. But there's always been this huge question for developers. Once you've built an agent, how do you actually make it better? How do you take it from just good to great? Well, that's always been a major challenge. So let's dive right into the core of the problem. You could call it the agent training headache. For the longest time, making these agents smarter has been this slow, really expensive, and just incredibly complicated process. And this slide just lays it out perfectly. It shows the huge gap between the messy reality and what developers have always dreamed of. See, the traditional way often uses something called reinforcement learning, or RL. Think of it like teaching a dog new tricks with treats. It learns through trial and error. But for AI, this meant complicated code rewrites, it was slow, expensive, and you could easily break things that were already working. The dream, of course, is the exact opposite. Super fast optimization, zero code changes, and a system that works on literally any agent you throw at it. So how in the world do you bridge that gap? How do you get from the nightmare to the dream? Well, Microsoft's answer is a brand new framework that's designed to do exactly that. It's called Agent Lightning. And this quote right here, this is the magic. It gets right to the heart of what Agent Lightning is all about. The promise is so simple, yet so powerful. Give developers all the benefits of reinforcement learning, which is one of the best ways to train AI, but just get rid of all the usual headaches and barriers. So how does it actually pull this off? The secret sauce is a really simple but brilliant idea called decoupling. Just think of Agent Lightning as a coach standing on the sidelines of the game. The coach watches the agent, the player, play, takes detailed notes, and figures out a better strategy for the next game. But here's the key. The coach never runs onto the field, never rewrites the player's DNA, or directly interferes with the game. Okay, so it's a coach on the sidelines. But what does that actually mean in practice? How can it possibly improve the agent's performance if it never even touches the code? Well, it follows this really clever four-step process. First, it just observes. It sits back and watches the agent go through a full task from start to finish. Then, it decomposes that whole interaction, breaking it down into tiny individual moments. Third, it analyzes every single one of those moments and scores the agent's actions. And finally, based on all that analysis, it optimizes by creating a new and improved policy, which is basically just a smarter playbook for the agent to use the next time it faces that task. Now, to really get why that's so cool, you have to remember the old way of doing things. Traditional RL was, well, it was blunt. It was like watching an entire football game and only finding out the final score at the very end. You'd know if you won or lost, but you'd have no idea why. But this is where Agent Lightning completely changes the game. It provides intermediate rewards, or what you might call partial credit. So, for example, if an agent is trying to write a piece of code and gets the first function right, but messes up the second one, it still gets a pat on the back for the part it got right. This kind of detailed, step-by-step feedback makes the learning process so much faster and more efficient. It's a total game changer. And this whole approach, this smart coach on the sidelines giving out partial credit, it leads to some really significant real-world benefits for anyone building AI agents. Okay, one of the biggest wins here is compatibility. Because it's a totally separate layer that isn't messing with the agent's guts, it just works with the tools that developers are already using every single day. You're using LangChain, AutoGen, the OpenAI SDK, no problem. It plugs right into existing workflows almost effortlessly. And the results? Well, they pretty much speak for themselves. In the experiments Microsoft ran, the performance jump was huge. Let's take a really complex task, like asking an agent to turn a plain English sentence into a working SQL query. An untrained agent got it right about 55% of the time. You know, better than a coin flip, but not something you'd bet your job on. But after being trained with Agent Lightning, that success rate shot all the way up to 85%. That is a massive leap in reliability. So we've seen how it works, and we've seen that it gets incredible results. But let's zoom out for a second. What does a technology like this really mean for the bigger picture, for the future of smart agents? Well, the immediate applications are everywhere. We're talking about programming assistants that can generate much better code and fix more bugs on their own. Customer service bots that can give you more accurate and maybe even more empathetic answers. Financial analysis tools could get a serious boost in their forecasting accuracy. Pretty much any automated process driven by an agent can be made smarter and more efficient. But honestly, the real long-term impact is the vision it unlocks. This isn't just about a one-and-done training session. Agent Lightning points toward a future where AI agents aren't these static tools you build once and then forget about. Instead, they become these dynamic systems that can automatically and continuously improve themselves just by doing their job day in and day out. And that's why this is being called a fundamental shift. It's not just another neat tool. By completely removing the need to rewrite an agent's code, Microsoft has essentially made a very powerful AI technique accessible to everybody. Reinforcement learning is no longer just for specialized AI research teams. It's a tool that could soon be in the hands of any developer. So, all of this leaves us with one big, kind of mind-bending thought to chew on. Frameworks like Agent Lightning are pushing us one giant step closer to a future of truly self-improving AI. And that forces us to ask a really fascinating question. What happens when our AI can finally teach itself?